So I'm done with my fray check now. I think I started getting a little bit high. Take it. You go like that. And I'm going to be about there, so I don't know if you can see this or not, but the background fabric is hitting like right here. So if I'm doing about a ½ inch seam allowance, I'm going to intersect right there. So there it is. Voila. And that gives you a nice edge there for your hammock. I'm going to be sewing right on this quarter mark here. Okay, so here we go. Here is how the bias tape turned out. I need to actually set up the hammock in order for me to be able to figure out the bug netting, which I need to figure out before I do the bias tape. Although I kind of have to do the bias tape on the ends in order to do the roll. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do as much of the end as I can and leave a little bit, undone on the ends. Then I'll roll it and whip it and do everything I need to do. I'll hang it up, figure out the bug netting, and then I'll undo the whipping and then add the bias and the bug netting once I get everything all cut out. So that's kind of the plan. If I had a pattern, it would be totally different, but because I'm sort of doing this as I go, I'm going to have to figure kind of everything out as I go. Moving forward, I'll have a pattern and then I can just do it that way, so it won't be as big of a deal. I've got my one end all flattened out. This is actually my foot end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark at 3 inches and then 6 inches from there, so it would be 9 inches from the end. So we'll do 3 inches first, mark it, that'll be my first fold line, and then I'll do another 6 inches and that will be my second fold line, and then we'll get it all folded over and pinned up. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold over on these lines. So we'll do one fold like so, and then another fold like that. And then I'll do 3 stitches along here. But I think I'm going to start in the middle since everything is pretty flat here. And we'll go ahead and we'll roll that on over here. And that should hit right on that second mark that I made. I think I'm going to go ahead and go over and get my iron, plug it in over here, and that way I can press as I go, because that'll make it lay really nice and flat, and I should get a really good curve. Okay, so I just turned myself around so I could actually get the iron to reach here. So what I do is I fold over my first fold, get it to line up on those marks that I drew there, and we'll go ahead and get our iron, and we'll start to press that down. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys this. This is, like I said, I knew I was going to have a little bit of trouble going around this curve, and so what I've had to do is kind of get the fabric to do what I want. And I'm mostly for here, because it is bubbling a little bit, I'm actually just going to press just where the actual fold is and let the fabric kind of do what it's going to do right there. I can try to do a little bit of where you kind of go like this. And what that does is it kind of eases the fabric. So fabric, because of the way that, all the fibers are, they're kind of like this. If you kind of, if they're a little bit bunchy, you can kind of, so fabrics mostly are like this. If you kind of do that with the iron, you can kind of get them to go like that and kind of bunch up in the open spaces. So it'll be like that, and then when you use the iron, they'll start kind of going like this. It'll only buy you a little bit, but it might be enough here to where it'll make it kind of do what I want it to do. And then the rest I'm going to have to handle via sewing as I sew. I'll have to bend the fabric a little bit to get it to lay flat. Okay, so now I have to kind of pull this back up a little bit. Get around that curve there. Okay, there we go. And what I may do too is go ahead and pin a little bit to help me out here, so I make sure that everything stays the way I want it to. So now we're on to the next fold. So we'll go ahead and just fold straight on over from where we were. Get it to line up right there on our marks. And we'll go ahead and press it again. And again, I'm probably going to have to make it do a few things as I go here to get it to lay how I want it to. But that's kind of how you go, and you just kind of keep moving along and keep moving along and get it to do what you want it to. It's actually not going to matter that much. I may actually go ahead and do a little fold over dart if it ends up being too much. You're not going to really see this because what I'm going to do is I'm going to, run my rope through here, and then I'll gather it up, and then I'm going to do where you do the 2 rolls and then you whip it. So you really won't even see this. So I'm not really that worried about it. As I'm pinning here, I'm getting, you can see here I've got quite a pucker going on here. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of doing what you do when you kind of want to ease fabric in. It's similar to if you did a gather, but without the actual gather stitch. So I'll take my pin and I'll kind of stick it there, and then I'll kind of slide the fabric back and forth like this until I get equal amount of pucker on either side. And then I'll go ahead and I'll pin it right there. And then I'll come back in, if I still have, a fairly significant pucker there, and I'll do the same. I'll put the pin in the middle, and then I'll kind of move the fabric back and forth until I get it exactly where I want it. And then what that does is now when I go back in with my stitches, I've got a fairly flat surface that I'll be going over. And so it should make it, a lot better as far as that goes. So again, you put it kind of in the middle, and this isn't really that much of a pucker, so it doesn't really move on me. But so I'll put it in the middle. I've got equal amounts on either side. Voila. So this one's pretty big. So like, for example, I wouldn't want to do something like this where it's very flat here, but it's still got this huge pucker here, right? What I want to do is more in the middle, and then I'll slide it over just enough to where now you can see I've got equal puckers on either side. And then I'll go ahead and I'll pin it there. Okay. And now actually it's laying pretty flat for me, so I think that's all I need to do there. Again, I've got this huge pucker, right? What do I do with it? The very first one I'm going to mark here is kind of in between, almost halfway in between the 2 that I've got that are known goods, right? And so I've got it all laid out here, and I've got it already pressed and everything on the first fold. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of do it to where not only is it sort of grain-wise kind of running pretty straight here, but I also want to account for, is there about the same amount of pucker on both sides here? I would say about there is where I'd like to do that first pin. I got it there. I'm going to go ahead and sink this pin here. Then basically you just keep doing that same process here. And I've got everything marked pretty well. Again, I just want to make sure I've got roughly the same amount of fabric on either side. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and I'll mark that. Okay. And then when you start getting down to these, like I said, these smaller ones, this is where you start doing the whole, you kind of slide, stick your little thing in and you slide back and forth, and then that will get you where you need to be. So, okay, go there. Okay, and really all I'm doing is just divide and conquer pretty much, halving it out here. And like I said, and as you see, the more you keep pinning down, the flatter everything's going to get. And then I should be able to ease that in when I run it through the machine. It's pretty straightforward, it just takes a little bit of patience and just kind of, don't be afraid to keep moving things. What's the worst that could happen? You can always pull these pins out and start over to get it to lay flat. Just take your time, and you'll get it to lay the way you want it to. So I've got my pins all set up here. You can see I've kind of done my little ironing thing where I'm trying to get it to ease in a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and stitch it, and I'm going to do probably just 3 lines of stitch here just to make it good and strong. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave about just over a ½ inch here open, and that's so I can eventually add in my bias tape that I'm going to put on the edges here. But this is just a test hang, to get the test hang together so that I can figure out, like I said, for the bug netting, how I want things to go. Okay, I got one side down. You can see all the little stitches. So now I'm going to work on the other side. So based on what I learned from the last one, I'm actually going to mark 6 inches out and then 3 inches. And that should give me all of the measurements that I need. I've been giving a lot of brain power to it. Hello again. Alrighty. Yeah. So I guess I'll get sewing. We're getting there, slowly but surely.